Hello, my name is Dr. Candlepun, and this is the orientation film for the Lost series of videos here on this channel. The channel was originally designed as a resource where Lost fans could come to understand the unique mysteries and ideas emanating from the 6 seasons of the show. Not long after the series began, however, there was a spoiler, and since that time, the following protocol has been observed. At the start of every video, a spoiler warning must be issued. Utmost importance that once the warning is shown, if you have not seen through the indicated episode, you exit the channel in a timely fashion. Namaste, and good luck. Hey everyone, real quick before diving in, I wanted to say a couple things up front. First off, if you happen to watch my intro video before watching this one, then you probably noticed that the title card you just saw was a massive improvement on the one that I had in that first video. Credit for that goes to Reddit user Kapunked. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that, but I'll be sure to put it on the bottom of the screen. They were kind enough to send me that way better version, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm really grateful for that, so thank you again. On that note, I also wanted to thank everyone that took the time to watch that intro video, and those that commented either on YouTube or on Reddit. And also definitely thank you to those that subscribed. I really appreciate that. I know that video wasn't super interesting, and honestly the support I've gotten just from that simple intro was really already a lot more than I expected. So now I'm definitely ready to share with you guys the first video in this series and hopefully begin to truly earn your guys' support. I wrestled for a few days with which topic or theory I should discuss first. But then, given the crazy, unprecedented situation that the whole world's kind of in right now, it suddenly seemed quite obvious. That's why in today's video, we're going to talk about why it said quarantine on the inside of the hatch door, as well as what those vials of vaccine were. If you do end up liking this video, please do comment below what other lost topics and theories you might like to see videos on. But for now, let's get lost. The Dharma Initiative. For those that may need refreshing, the initiative came to the island to pursue several fields of scientific research. These included zoology, electromagnetism, psychology, and parapsychology. Among many others. Swan Station was designed to be a research facility where Dharma could experiment with one of the unique pockets of electromagnetism located on the island. However,
there was an incident.
From that point on, the main purpose of the station became to discharge the buildup of this energy before it reached critical levels. This was done by entering the numbers into the computer every 108 minutes or so. In the Season 2 premiere episode, Man of Science, Man of Faith, we get our first look inside the Swan Station in the form of Desmond's daily routine. One of the most intriguing parts of this routine comes near the end of the sequence where we see Desmond inject himself with some sort of vaccine, of which he seems to have a vast supply. Later in this same episode, Kate discovers the word quarantine is stenciled onto the inside of the hatch door. At this point in the show, it is perfectly reasonable to assume this all connects somehow to the sickness or infection that Russo talked about in Season 1.
He was sick.
Sick.
Took them, one after the other.
However, without venturing off topic, we do eventually learn the nature of that sickness, and in the process it becomes clear that it had nothing to do with Dharma. In fact, in all likelihood, the initiative probably had no knowledge of it. So what then was Dharma providing vaccines for, and what were they supposedly quarantining against? One popular idea is that it was all a hoax, designed to ensure the Swan occupants remained at their post to perform their extremely important duty. This idea is not without merit. Dharma is indeed shown to be secretive and even deceitful when it comes to certain aspects of its operation. Furthermore, Desmond eventually discovers Kelvin has indeed been lying to him for the past 3 years about how dangerous it is to go outside, especially without a hazmat suit.
Why did you lie to me?
I lied to you because I needed a sucker to save the world after I left.
You crazy, you bastard!
Come on.
You stole my life! What else did you lie to me about? What else?
So there you have it. It was simply a hoax. Thank you for watching. Just kidding. Despite this seeming like a nice, easy answer at first glance, there are actually some serious issues with this idea. One thing to consider is that when Kelvin discovers Desmond on the beach, Kelvin happens to be wearing his hazmat suit. Considering he had no apparent way of knowing he was going to find someone that day, I think it's fairly certain he wasn't wearing it as part of some potential con. To me, this suggests he genuinely believed, at least at this point, that it could potentially be hazardous to breathe the open air. While this doesn't automatically discount the idea of a hoax, it does rule him out as the author of said hoax. And considering his deception was the strongest piece of evidence supporting the hoax theory, it's certainly worth noting. But the biggest problem with the hoax explanation is that the word quarantine is also seen stenciled on the inside of the door to the Arrow station. As we learn in the Season 5 premiere episode, the purpose of this station was to gather intelligence on and prepare for potential conflict with the hostiles.
Hello, I'm Dr. Marvin Candle, and this is the orientation film for Station 2, The Arrow. Given your specific area of expertise, you should find it no surprise that this station's primary purpose is to develop defensive strategies and gather intelligence on the island's hostile indigenous population.
Dr. Chang.
Now, I would argue that the personnel stationed at the Arrow are more likely to be the ones doing the deceiving than they are to be the ones getting deceived. But more than that, I genuinely don't see what purpose there would be in trying to scare your military force / intelligence agency into staying in the bunker. Taking this into account, I think we can safely discount the "it was just a hoax" theory. So now we're back at square one. Perhaps this time we should utilize one of the many lessons Lost teaches us. In order to go forward, first, we have to go back. In this case, let's go back to December 19th, 1992. The day of the Purge. We first glimpse this event in Ben's flashback in the Season 3 episode The Man Behind the Curtain. We see Ben put on a gas mask before using a gas canister to kill his father. He then returns to the barracks to find the entire Dharma community dead, while the hostiles appear wearing gas masks as well. It would be easy to come to the conclusion that the hostiles used the same type of gas canisters we just saw Ben use. Upon closer examination, however, it becomes quite clear this is not the case. Note that there are no canisters on the ground. Note that none of the dead Dharma folk seem to have been fleeing or panicking in any way when they died. Instead, they seem to have died in the middle of whatever mundane tasks they were doing. This suggests there was no visible warning, such as canisters being deployed. Lastly, note that Ben wore his gas mask the entire walk from the van back to the barracks. All of this tells us these people were killed by different means. Then, in the Season 4 episode The Other Woman, we learn what those means were. We learn that the Dharma station The Tempest has the capability to release toxic gas into certain sectors of the island, if not the entire island.
The two people you're looking for, Faraday and Lewis, they're headed to the Tempest. And if they figure out how to deploy that gas, then everyone on this island is going to die.
We know from things we learn in Season 5 that Ben was not the only Dharma defector that joined the hostiles. Clearly, someone with an intimate knowledge of the Tempest helped carry out the purge.
Juliet, look me in the eye and tell me you are certain that Benjamin Linus wouldn't use this gas to kill everyone on this island. We know he's used it before.
This is where I would like to put forth the question. If you were a Dharma member that was going to switch sides, and you also had knowledge of the vitally important work being done in the Swan, would you think it a good idea to kill those Dharma workers too? Sure, you could have hostiles take their place, just like Mikhail takes over the Flame. But would anyone really want to do that job? Especially when you can keep a close eye on the occupants via the Pearl surveillance. So maybe instead, on the day of the purge, you go to the Swan and you warn the two occupants. You tell them they'll be spared, so long as they keep doing their job. But who are the two men inside the Swan in December of '92? Kelvin Inman and Stuart Rudzinski. We first learn about Rudzinski from Kelvin in the Season 2 finale.
Who's Rudzinski?
He was my partner.
But after that finale, he's not mentioned again until Season 5, when we learn a great deal more about him. We learn that he is the one who originally designed the Swan, and that the case could easily be made that he's at least partially responsible for the incident that made the button necessary to begin with.
Who stopped the damn drill? This is it! We're on top of the pocket!
If we keep drilling and hit that pocket, all hell is gonna break loose.
He's also extremely aggressive and confrontational, especially when it comes to the hostiles, or at least he is in the 70s. So the day comes when he is informed of the purge and what his fate is to be. What might he consider to be his last hope to find help? If only there was some secret military fort Dharma had hidden away. So surely he would have ventured out to the Arrow, dressed in his hazmat suit, of course, only to discover the defectors knew of this place too, and there were no survivors. Maybe there were weapons left to bring back to the Swan Armory, or maybe it was already picked clean by the hostiles. Maybe it was at this point that he stenciled the word quarantine on the inside of the door, as a warning to any potential survivors that may seek shelter there. Regardless, at this point he would have gone back to the Swan with very little hope. So let's imagine being Rudzinski at this point. You're trapped in a hell of your own making. Your people are almost entirely dead, having lost the war that you yourself played a part in instigating. You could at any and all moments be under surveillance by the enemy. And now you can never leave your confinement without being reasonably paranoid that you could be killed simply by breathing. Might you start to go crazy? I know I would. You'd probably continue trying to do reconnaissance of the island, looking for any other survivors. You'd probably want to map your progress, but you know you might be being watched. So maybe you start making an invisible map on a blast door that only you know how to manually retract.
Yeah, you should have seen Rudzinski do this. He had a photographic memory. I mean, this whole baby was his idea.
Then maybe you decide to cut out parts of the orientation film, specifically the part that forbids you from trying to contact the outside world.
Rudzinski made some edits.
You hide the clip back at the Arrow. Maybe this is when you write the word quarantine inside the door. Are your actions no longer making any rational sense? Sure, but doesn't that kind of make sense? Finally, the day comes when you have no more hope and you can't take it anymore. So you write quarantine on the inside of the hatch door, if you haven't already. And then you kill yourself.
See that brown stain there? That's Rudzinski. He put a shotgun in his mouth when I was asleep.
So now, let us put ourselves in Kelvin's shoes. You're left alone pushing the button. When you can, you continue exploring the island in the hazmat suit. However, you only have intervals of about an hour and a half to do this, until one day you find Desmond and his boat. He's alive, and not at all suffering from breathing in toxic gas. In that moment, you decide to lie to this man in order to make your escape. You tell him the boat is gone. You tell him the quarantine is for some deadly airborne pathogen. You tell him the mysterious vaccine is for said pathogen. You tell him he can never go outside. Your actions are wrong, but like Radzinski before you, they're understandable. Eventually, Desmond discovers the lie and assumes the quarantine was nothing more than another lie. And that, of course, brings us full circle. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I believe the word quarantine was written inside the hatch and inside the door to the Arrow. This warning only appeared in the two stations that we know for a fact Stuart Radzinski visited after the Purge, which seems to suggest a connection between both Stuart Radzinski and the Purge. And most of you are probably thinking, that explains the quarantines, but what about the vaccines? How do they fit into this explanation? Well, that's the thing. What if, like in the case of the French team's infection, the assumption that these two things were related was incorrect? The only real evidence to suggest these two things were related was what Kelvin told Desmond, which we just established was a lie. So what then would this vaccine be for? But maybe we should first ask, is it a vaccine? When Charlie finds the vials in the pallet drop, he tells Claire the instructions say to inject yourself every 9 days. Later, Desmond confirms this is what he did for the 3 years he lived in the hatch, to no obvious effect. But vaccines don't work this way. In certain cases, it does take multiple shots over a period of time, but never do you get injected on an ongoing and indefinite basis. So are we back to hoax? Not quite. Perhaps the term is false, but I think the treatment is real. I propose it is a legitimate medication designed to combat the effects of the close proximity to such high levels of electromagnetism and radiation. This would also explain why Ethan is seen using the same vials on Claire when she is pregnant.
I'm going to give you a shot now, Claire. A little medicine for your baby.
We know pregnant women die on the island due to the large spikes in electromagnetism. Therefore, it follows that injecting this medication would be one of the many things Dharma, and then the others, would be doing in an attempt to prevent pregnant women and their babies from dying. So to summarize, our vaccine is not a vaccine, but merely a medication designed to treat the effects of electromagnetic exposure. And our quarantine was simply an oversimplified warning of a very real threat by a man who steadily lost his mind. Well, I think that just about covers it for today. Believe it or not, that was actually the compact version of this theory and explanation. If there are any finer points you have questions about or would like me to address, please do comment them below. If there are enough of them, I will gladly do a follow-up Q&A video. Or if you have your own theory and explanation for the vaccines and or the quarantines, comment those as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you'd like to support this channel through Patreon, that link is below. But I know times are tough for us all right now, so likes, comments, and shares are all very appreciated forms of support as well. But even by simply watching all the way to this point in the video, you already have my gratitude. So thank you. And as always, namaste and good luck. Hello again, everyone. Sorry, I'm tacking this on to the end of the video because it wasn't until I was almost done editing that I realized I left one thing worth noting out of the script, and thus it never got filmed, and yeah. So I'm just adding this on. It's not a big deal, but basically in the season 3 episode, The Man Behind the Curtain, which is our Ben's flashbacks, when he first gets to the island and he goes through the welcome center, there is a sign that says inoculations, and then he sees somebody getting injected. Now, an inoculation would be the same thing as a vaccine, and therefore would not be the medication that I was talking about that would have to be injected every 9 days. That said, I think there's a very easy explanation for this one. if you've ever traveled overseas to certain places, specifically in the South Pacific, you probably know that you do have to get certain vaccines for things that you would not have been exposed to before. So I think that's all this is. Perfectly reasonable that some people lump that in with the other injections that we see. But yeah, basically I think it's as simple as that. But all right, thanks for sticking around for this little post-credit scene.